Hey everyone, this is Nathan Phillips checking in, and this is actually going to be a brief video on a few different plyometrics drills that you can do to help improve your running or sprinting. And ultimately, plyometrics, a good question is, what are they? I think about it this way: with running, there's a lot of propulsion involved, pushing yourself forward, maximizing ground reaction forces, and in general, plyometrics is just jump or force velocity training, as I like to call it. Now, jump training, just because some of your most basic forms of plyometrics are jumping jacks, jump squats, jumping lunges, broad jumps, Bulgarian split squats, box jumps, as you can probably see here, or even mildly jumping rope. And I say force velocity training is a more generalized and applicable term just because plyometrics isn't just limited to the lower extremities. Of course, there are a bunch of different upper body plyometrics exercises that you can do. But when I say force velocity training, I say that because the intention is to produce a lot of force over a very short amount of time, regardless of the body part that you're working at the moment. Now, I recommend these exercises because a friend of mine who is predominantly a long distance runner, she needed to work on her stride mechanics, but the main thing is that her stride length has been progressively short for what it's worth. And one of the things that I noticed is that when we're doing the box jumps, for example, she has very visually apparent heavy landings. When we're doing these things, some of those jumps, like we were using much lower boxes, as lower than I've demonstrated here, they require a little bit more effort than they should have required, and the landings sounded and looked pretty heavy. She just didn't have very much control. So normally when you're doing box jumps or a bunch of different plyometrics exercises, you want to have much lighter feet, especially when landing or from a step to step or bounce to bounce basis. Less so stomping and more of a, as I said before, light bounce. So for her, she needs to develop quite a bit of explosiveness, and this is something that a lot of runners and sprinters need to do as well, particularly in the calves, the gastrocnemius and soleus muscles. Now, the main thing to keep in mind is that force generation capability of the muscle is often going to be limited by the size of its cross-sectional area. But what that means is that you're naturally going to be getting a little bit more force being produced by a muscle that's larger or that has larger muscle fibers at its expense. Now, if you train often enough, you should be able to increase the muscle size and relative strength as a product. I mean, that's ultimately going to be the goal, right? Why else would we train to just stay the same? Now, the ability to reduce dorsiflexion on landings is going to be indicative of this lower strength we're trying to develop. So during the training process, regardless of the drills that you do, you've got to make more of an effort to be elastic and plantar flex with the requisite amount of force and velocity, especially during that toe-off phase of the sprint or that toe-off phase of every exercise that you do.